There's a new game coming soon for your favorite retro consoles. PSCD Games, the people behind the Foxyland port to the Sega Genesis and that neat Resident Evil demo, now have Black Jewel Reborn coming to Kickstarter. Let's check it out. So Black Jewel Reborn is best described as a side-scrolling action game or a hack and slash, as the Kickstarter puts it. One very much existing in that late 80s aesthetic of buff Conan the Barbarian style characters slashing their way through enemies. You're very oddly named Ryan or Julia, and you'll be facing Darkor and the monsters brought to the world after the evil Skull Knight stole the titular Black Jewel. The scrolling story at the front is a bit messy, but better written on the Kickstarter page. Darkor stole the Black Jewel from the ancient Temple of Power. He's going to use it to overwhelm all the people of the kingdom and become its sole ruler. Ryan and Julia are the strongest warriors, the only ones that courageously decide to oppose the dark plans of the enemy. The mighty swordsman warrior and the invincible Amazon with the whip are already on the trail of Darkor, ready to eradicate his army of monstrous creatures and bring the Black Jewel back to the temple. Now before we go too far, it should be pointed out that this is a port, or to be more accurate, a reworking of Black Jewel, an indie PC release that mimics classic Commodore 64 games. This was developed and released by Oscar Celestini, who is the art director for the new port, and still follows the same concept and story, but is already, at this point of the Reborn version, a very different experience. Like many games of that era that Black Jewel is trying to recreate, it is slow and stiff but has nice animations and is very much aesthetic first, more than gameplay. You need to adjust to how the game works and learn its oddities to make it anywhere. But if you have any nostalgia for that era of games, like me, and you have $3 whole laying around, you can grab it on itch.io or Steam. There are some big differences straight away in this version, even as early as it is. While it seems to be keeping some of the levels and enemies, the pacing is already extended, and the density and behavior of enemies are closer to a more standard console action title, rather than the slower classic home PC style. Of course, as you can tell, the graphics are quite different too, going from the big character sprites and more bare backgrounds to more detailed levels but much more subdued characters. Now I'd imagine the Reborn part of the title makes a lot more sense. I know it helped me put what PSCD is doing now with this release and Kickstarter into context, especially since the current demo is very short, only spanning one level, a mini-boss of sorts, and the boss at the end. The demo is also only for the Sega Genesis version, but the Kickstarter is for several, including Super Nintendo, Game Boy, and NES. They all seem to follow the same format, but obviously there will be differences between the platforms. I hope demos of those eventually get released before the end of the Kickstarter. So of course we need to talk about how Black Jewel Reborn even plays. Like I said before, it comfortably sits in the console action title genre. Think of Legendary Axe on the TurboGrafx-16, Lord of the Sword on Master System, or Kensai Den even. Not quite a beat 'em up like Golden Axe, and not really any adventure or RPG elements that can be seen yet. You get to pick between two characters in this version, Ryan, the giant beefy barbarian dude, or the unnamed heroine with a whip, or Julia, the Amazonian, according to the Kickstarter page. Ryan carries a long sword and attacking enemies is a simple button combo, one press for a swing, and after several, you get a different slash and maybe a kick. Well, I never seem to get that combo consistently. Ryan walks at a slower pace, but not nearly as bad as the original, but he has a pretty impressive jump. You cannot duck, and this bothers me. I took hits quite a lot when first trying to play because I wanted to duck under shots rather than constantly needing to jump over them. It would flow better if I could duck under a spear and attack another enemy rather than constantly trying to jump over obstacles and keep my distance. You also have magic as indicated by the fire icon next to the player icon, and it can be seen in action in the trailer for the game. But I could never get it to work. Maybe that was on me, maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I'm not sure if it isn't implemented in the demo or if it's a glitch. The long sword icon in the middle will eventually glow as well, and when it does, you can use a dash attack, though it didn't seem very effective right now, usually blowing through enemies and causing me to take damage at the end. As for the second character, Julia, everything functions in the same way. Your whip slashes down like the sword and it has about the same reach, the dash is available after a charge up period, and your walk and agility are the same as well. It is mostly cosmetic at this point from what I can tell, which isn't bad, but isn't great either. You do have a different form of magic, but again, I never got it to work. I do appreciate having a character choice and hope that eventually it will offer some different strategies to the games. For both characters, you have a few lives and a health bar indicated by your avatar in the top left corner. As you get hurt, the image on the character vanishes, revealing a skull. I love unique ways to display health like that, and as long as it functions well. And this one does, in my opinion. Health refills can be found on the ground or in chests or boxes when smashed with your mighty sword. You can also collect coins through the level after killing enemies or chopping things down, and those add to your score, which will eventually reward you with an extra life. You do have the option for 2 players, which despite knowing I will unlikely ever play it that way, I always appreciate having this as an option. We simply do not have enough couch co-op games in the world anymore. Enemies do what enemies tend to do, hoping to charge at you with a quick stab or tossing a spear your way. You also have sky jerks that will constantly dive bomb your character in evil faces on trees that shoot fireballs. You can block the fireballs with a quick swing, a nice touch. The one and only boss, the dragon, flies above you most of the time, spitting fire as it flies by. You need to wait for when it comes low enough so you can hit it and bring it down to the ground, which when it does, I tended to take damage since it slammed down so quickly. The fight is a bit messy, but it works. Overall, the design of the game is really nice. It doesn't quite feel like a 16-bit Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo title with the tiny character sprites, but the pixel work is excellent, so it makes up for it. Scrolling background effects like the clouds moving over the moon, detailed backgrounds and foregrounds, lovely shading, and a good color palette. Also never experienced any slowdown or similar issues. The little cutscenes and title screen are really nice too. I can't wait to see what else gets added to the game. The music is lovely. It has a nice groove and there's some good percussion in there. It does sound a bit unpolished maybe, but I definitely look forward to hearing what else it has to offer as we get closer to launch and what it sounds like on other platforms. The Kickstarter is already live and describes the goals, what is left for the development of each version, and what is all included. Looks like the Genesis version is the most complete, and the others are much further behind. You have the option to back it just for the ROM, which is great if you like to use emulators or if you have flashcards, but if you want to go all in, there are physical versions available in both card-only, boxed, and bundles. There are stretch goals that add new levels and new characters, and I'm surprised to see that the planned release date is September of this year. I have my doubts that that date will be met, but only time will tell. Overall, I see a lot of potential fun in this game and enjoy the overall aesthetic it is trying to recreate. Had this come out in 1990, it would have felt very at home on any of the consoles, but after the Sega Genesis, I'm very interested to see what it's like on the Game Boy, or its more linear structure and slow pacing feels very cozy for a handheld title. I played this on my stock Genesis Model 2 using my Mega EverDrive X7, and even if it was the only choice for this game, it would still be a solid game to consider backing. You have almost a month to make your decision. If this is something you think you may like, you probably will enough to enjoy the final game. But if you're on the fence, I'd wait until there's more to see and maybe another demo. Definitely download the current demo beforehand and load it into a flash card or on your favorite emulator. Either way, I'll be giving this campaign my support and I look forward to seeing the final product. Thanks for watching this episode of RetroActive, and let me know what you think of Black Jewel Reborn in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Hey, this is Kevin, once again thanking you so much for watching another episode of RetroActive. If you liked it, please hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment, all the stuff I'm supposed to say, and I also want to remind you that I do have a Ko-fi account and a Discord. Links will be in the description. Bye!